The attic was dark and dusty. Cobwebs hung from every corner. 10-year-old Sophie cautiously climbed the creaky stairs. She held her breath, afraid of what she might find. Then she saw it. An old doll lay discarded in a dusty trunk. Its porcelain face was cracked, but its blue eyes seemed to sparkle. Sophie reached out, strangely drawn to the forgotten toy. She carefully lifted the doll, brushing cobwebs from its once beautiful velvet dress. Little did Sophie know her life was about to change forever.
I'll name you Anya.
She felt an odd connection to it, as if it were more than just a toy. She carried Anya everywhere, whispering secrets to its unlistening ears. Anya sat on her bed, watching her with those unsettling blue eyes. At night, Sophie snuggled close to the doll, feeling a strange comfort in its presence. But as the days passed, strange things began to happen around the house, unsettling Sophie's peaceful world. Doors slammed shut on their own. Objects vanished, only to reappear in odd places. Sophie's toys danced across the floor as if pulled by an invisible string. A cold shiver ran down her spine. These events filled her with a growing sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, something unseen and sinister. Sophie started to suspect that the doll, Anya, had something to do with the strange occurrences.
This can't be happening. It must be Anya.
One evening, Sophie's favorite music box started playing on its own. The haunting melody filled the air, sending chills down her spine. The music seemed to emanate from the attic, the source of her newfound terror. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest as she slowly climbed the attic stairs, her every instinct screaming at her to turn back. The attic door creaked open as if inviting her into its dark embrace. Sophie's eyes darted around the dusty attic, searching for the source of the eerie music. And then she saw her, Anya. The doll was no longer lying lifeless in the trunk. It sat upright on a dusty shelf, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. The blue eyes seemed to pierce through Sophie, their blank stare sending shivers down her spine. The music stopped abruptly, leaving a deafening silence hanging in the air. Sophie felt a cold breath on her neck, as if something unseen stood behind her.
Oh no, this can't be real.
Sophie backed away slowly, her eyes never leaving the doll. Fear coiled in her stomach, a knot of dread tightening with each step. She stumbled over a loose floorboard, the sound echoing in the silence of the attic. As she turned to flee, she swore she saw Anya's lips curve into a sinister smile. Sophie ran downstairs, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was alive, its blue eyes watching her every move.
Who's there? That night, Sophie lay awake in bed, her body trembling beneath the covers. The events of the day played over and over in her mind, each replay intensifying her fear. Just when she thought she might drift off to sleep, she heard it. A whisper, faint and chilling, seemed to come from the foot of her bed. Sophie froze, her breath caught in her throat. She slowly pulled the covers down, her eyes wide with terror.
Sophie, come play with me. There, sitting on the floor, was Anya. The doll's porcelain face seemed to glow in the darkness, its blue eyes burning into her. The whispering started again, this time a little louder, a little closer. Sophie couldn't make out the words, but the voice sounded ancient, filled with a malice that sent shivers down her spine.
Sophie screamed, her voice echoing in the silent house. She jumped out of bed and ran to her parents' room, desperate for comfort, for reassurance that she wasn't going mad.
Mom, Dad, the doll, Anya. It whispers to me, it moves on its own. Please, you have to believe me.
Oh, sweetheart, it's just your imagination. Anya is just a doll. She can't hurt you.
Let me check under the bed and in the closet. See? There's nothing here but dust and shadows.
Come on, let's get you back to bed. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Sophie wanted to believe her parents. She wanted to believe that the whispers were just the wind, that the moving doll was just a trick of the light. But deep down, she knew the truth. Anya was alive, and it was toying with her, its sinister game just beginning. The next day, Sophie tried to ignore Anya, hoping that if she pretended the doll didn't exist, it would leave her alone. But Anya seemed to delight in tormenting her, its presence a constant weight on Sophie's young shoulders.
Why won't you just leave me alone?
Sophie's grandmother's old rocking chair, untouched for years, started moving back and forth. It creaked rhythmically, a steady beat in the otherwise silent house. Each creak seemed to echo Sophie's growing fear. Sophie stood in the doorway of the living room, her eyes glued to the rocking chair. It moved with a life of its own, as if an unseen presence occupied its cushions. The air grew heavy, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Sophie felt a cold hand on her shoulder and spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. But no one was there. She was alone with the rocking chair and the growing certainty that something was terribly wrong. That night, Sophie's parents were awakened by the sound of breaking glass. They rushed to Sophie's room, their hearts pounding with fear. They found Sophie huddled in a corner, her eyes wide with terror, her entire body trembling. Shattered glass from a broken picture frame littered the floor. But what chilled them to the bone was the sight of Anya. The doll sat perched on Sophie's pillow, its blue eyes glowing in the moonlight.
We have to get rid of that doll.
Sophie's father whispered, his voice laced with a fear he had never known. For the first time he saw the truth in his daughter's terrified eyes. He saw the reality of the haunting that had invaded their home, the evil that lurked in the shadows, watching, waiting. He picked up Anya, its porcelain skin cold and lifeless in his hands, and carried it out of the room. He had to protect his daughter, even if it meant confronting the unknown.
A small, folded piece of paper lay at the bottom of the trunk. He picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly. Sophie's father decided to lock Anya in the attic, as far away from his daughter as possible. He hoped that by containing the doll, he could contain the terror that had gripped their home. He placed Anya back in the dusty trunk, its blue eyes seemingly following his every move. As he turned to leave, he noticed something strange. Beware. The note was written in a language he couldn't understand, the letters spidery and faint. But one word stood out, stark and terrifying, written in what looked like blood.
Sophie's father felt a chill run down his spine, a premonition of something terrible to come. He crumpled the note in his hand, his heart heavy with a dread he couldn't shake off. He had made a terrible mistake. He should have destroyed the doll when he had the chance. Later that night, as a storm raged outside, Sophie's parents lay in bed, unable to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over their home. The wind howled like a banshee, and rain lashed against the windows, creating a symphony of sound that did little to ease their troubled minds. Suddenly, the bedroom door creaked open, a sliver of lightning illuminating the hallway beyond.
Gasp!
Sophie's mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. Standing in the doorway, illuminated by another flash of lightning, was Anya. The doll seemed to glide across the floor, its porcelain face expressionless, its blue eyes burning with an eerie light. In its hands, it clutched a piece of paper, stained with the same crimson color that had marked the note in the attic. Sophie's parents sat up in bed, their eyes wide with horror, their bodies frozen in fear. Anya stopped at the foot of the bed, its blank stare fixed on the terrified couple. The doll extended its arm, offering the blood-stained note to Sophie's parents. The message, scrawled in the same unsettling handwriting, sent chills down their spines.
You should have listened, it read.
The storm raged outside, mirroring the terror that had gripped the hearts of Sophie's parents. They had dismissed their daughter's fears, rationalized the unexplainable, and now they were paying the price. The doll dropped the note, its porcelain hand now inches from Sophie's mother's face. The blue eyes seemed to burn with an infernal light, reflecting the fury of the storm outside.
He reached out to grab the doll, to tear it away from his wife, to protect his family from the evil that had invaded their home.
But as his fingers closed around Anya's cold porcelain arm, the doll vanished. The room plunged into darkness as the storm reached its crescendo, a deafening clap of thunder shaking the very foundation of the house. Sophie's parents were left in darkness, their hearts pounding in their chests, the echo of the doll's message ringing in their ears. They had invited evil into their home, and now it seemed it had no intention of leaving. They were trapped, prisoners in their own home, haunted by the doll's revenge.